Memento Mori. Remember, you must die.
Persona 3 will never ever be played again. At least not the original. And I don't mean Persona 3 Portable. Yes, that's already a bad game, but just the original Persona 3 FES. The release of Persona 3 Reload has just come out, and it's an amazing remake. I think nobody's gonna look at it and say otherwise. But it's one of those remakes that you will never go back to the game. There's no real true reason to go back to the old game. But I am glad that I played Persona 3 FES, the original Persona game, before Reload. Because if I had not done it and I had just started with Reload, I would have missed an amazing, unique, special game that is not the same as Persona Reload, that's for sure. They are two different games, and it's kind of sad to think that the original Persona 3 game won't ever be played again. So yes, this is going to be my review of Persona 3. I am a Christian. I'm no pricey Christian gamer. I love RPGs, JRPGs, such as Persona games. I have started with Persona 5, and I'm slowly making my way through the other games. And honestly, I tried to make this video over a year ago, over in October. I was like, this is a great Halloween game. I'll cover it. But because of different kind of stipulations, I just couldn't get the video out. So I've been struggling and focused and seeped into my mind about this game, and I had to share it with you guys. So it's a big video, so I hope you guys can buckle up. So keep in mind that, again, I wasn't making this video originally in mind with Persona Reload coming out, but with it coming out, there's so many things that are going to be changed that is no longer going to be in the remake. And so we have a special ride that I want to showcase to you guys. This is truly, for a lot of fans, the real start to Persona. See, when Persona came out originally, long time ago, it was a side game off of Shin Megami Tensei. And with that, its first two games are very similar to Shin Megami Tensei. And it wasn't until Persona 3 that a lot of the key mechanics that people look at as Persona and as a selling point for Persona started here. Stuff like the time, the clock system of going to school, making social links with different people, getting a job, all these different things, while also having the dungeon crawl of the Persona games mixed together was what made Persona Persona, and it all started here. Now, this isn't a video to say, hey, don't play Persona Reload. You probably should play Persona Reload. It's just, I don't want to forget what was in the original Persona 3. So we're going to cover it here today as a Christian. What was my experience playing through this game and going through it? Yes, I do have some mind stuff of I was playing Persona 5 years back, and this is very similar. Interesting. But there's other stuff we're going to note here. There's stuff about this game that, when I was originally going to play this game years back, and then I decided to finally do it, there's a lot of controversies of whether you should or should not play this game. It was kind of looked at as probably one of the worst Persona games, which is kind of wild. As I mentioned before, this is almost the originator of Persona and its identity, but because of its old mechanics and old gameplay style, it fell apart for some people. A lot of people don't recommend the original Persona game. So again, with this review, I would like to showcase what Persona 3 truly was in my experience as a Christian playing this amazing JRPG. But first, I gotta get my uniform on. Yeah, I had this for over a year. I used to have an armband, but then we lost it. It's been so long since I've been making this video, but let's finally jump into this game. After setting our difficulty setting to normal, because we're not sadistic, the game gives us a warning, setting the theme strong already off the bat with letting us know that time never waits for us, and that if we want to change stuff or do stuff in our future, that we have 1 year to do it.
Are you serious? You didn't know? You're an idiot. station right now.
Attention passengers. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience caused by the delay. The next stop is Iwo.
You got to let it move first, let it out.
Iwo Todai.
Then depressed, let's get it up. Then what you gonna do is
Iwo Todai. Iwo Todai. This is the final train bound for Tatsumi Port Island. Please make sure you board in time for departure. Iwo Todai. Iwo Todai.
You're late. I've been waiting a long time for you. Now, if you want to proceed, please sign your name there. It's a contract. Don't worry. All it says is that you'll accept full responsibility for your actions. You know, the usual stuff.
After the lovely cutscene, I mean, we'll get many more of these cutscenes in the future, which honestly, I love so much the aesthetic of this 90s anime cartoon style that I just love it so much. But with it, we are introduced to a contract and putting down our names. So we decided to just do Scrub Hero because, I mean, that is the name of my channel that I do Let's Plays on. Check it out if you want to watch me actually play a lot of these games. Plug over, back to the game.
No one can escape time. It delivers us all to the same end. You can't plug your ears and cover your eyes. And so it begins.
Who's there? Takaba, wait!
After almost getting shot, we get introduced to Yukari and Mitsuru Sensei, two characters who are going to be pretty prominent in the story. The game uses this to hint towards something more with, you know, obviously Yukari almost shooting us, while still keeping us in suspense of mystery of what's totally going on. Either way, they show us to the room, and then the next day, we are introduced to our school life.
So, that's it. See? There it is.
Ready for this? What a slacker. All I do is
Morning. Good morning.
trying out for science.
Well, this is it. We're here. Welcome to GeckoCon High School. Hope you like it.
After a long-winded speech from the principal, we start getting some fun dialogue choices in the game. Are we setting up our romance options by students asking us if we're in a relationship with Yukari or not? More interesting though, leading into these next few days, we start getting some classic introductions of another character named Junpei, who is definitely not Ryuji. Definitely not. Junpei is the best character in this game though. I mean, okay, well there's one other character, but for most of the game, Junpei is one of the best characters in the game. But after meeting Junpei and hanging out with him and having the day pass by, the game continues to introduce different kind of mechanics. One, we find right off the bat how you save is literally old school RPG style of going to a certain save spot and having to save that way, which is, boy, is that a rough mechanic. But not only that, other mechanics such as dialogue choices in school that actually help our stats go up, like our charm, just some of the different dialogue choices that the game has that really sets up for its spice of life kind of segment of the game. But as we go home for a second time, we then begin to get some of our inciting event. When we get home, we actually get to meet Suji Ikutsuki. Sorry if I mess up all these different names, but he is the head director of the high school we go to, and he is the one who is helping with this kind of housing that we get to have. We're part of this housing mostly because, as per classic Persona, we have just moved into this town. Though it just seems that the dean is here just to introduce us and welcome us to this new living arrangement, something is actually different. As when we go to sleep, the player, us, we get to see that we are being spied on. But before more is let to the player, we move on to the dark hour.
That was the Bayside Rockers. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Be sure to tune in again next week. KJ out.
Totally.
The preceding program was brought to you by Carito Electronics, bringing you the future. At the sound of the tone, the time will be 12 o'clock a.m.
With this revelation of the Dark Hour to us, the player, the dean, Shuji, who is in on it, starts to give us some exposition about this event. The Dark Hour is basically a third hour that happens that many don't know about. After midnight, this Dark Hour happens, and during it, ordinary people get turned into coffins, which is very vampire-esque. And while not much else is given about the Dark Hour, it does seem that the dean is still more interested to see if we have the potential.
Welcome to the Velvet Room, my dear young man.
In this velvet room, we meet Igor and Elizabeth, and we are kind of told that, hey, because we signed our contract, we get to be here, which is cool. He is here to help us, Igor is, to hone our skills, but all that he asks in return is that we fulfill our duty that we signed the contract for. Nothing much more is given about it before we are whisked away again. More mystery eludes us, but I don't know. Either way, I will say the fact that we just signed this contract and don't fully understand what has happened is terrifying. After another day flying by through a cutscene showing that it doesn't matter, it's at night during the dark hour our focus is pulled, where we see Yukari and Mitsururi and the dean again watching us. And we get some insight about Yukari as a character, about her kind of feeling like we're treating us, the character, as a guinea pig and how that doesn't feel right. Oddly, the dean's response is a little weird. I mean, some of it makes sense. He kind of says that, hey, we kind of need to like recruit dudes though for this, for this, whatever this is, and that, hey, you know what? Wouldn't it be great if like it's the person from the same grade as you? Wouldn't it be that cool? It's like, that's not, I don't know if that's a great reasoning, but okay. Either way, it gets interrupted as another character pops on the screen. Akihiko jumps on the comms to kind of like brings our attention to that, hey, there's trouble out here as shadows are attacking and something big is coming. And he makes it back to the base, but injured. He does warn that, hey, something is coming. So Yukari goes and wakes us up, and before explaining anything, also, she wakes us up in the dark hour, which honestly feels like that kind of like mythos of like, don't wake up somebody who's like sleepwalking. It feels like that type of thing of like, I don't know if that's the safest thing you do, but either way, she wakes us up to say, hey, we're not safe. And before we can explain what's going on, we have to rush to the roof. Luckily, we are able to get to the roof where we'll be totally safe.
What? Those monsters. We call them shadows.
Go on.
There. Wait.
Persona.
Thou art I, and I am thou. From the sea of thy soul I cometh. I am Orpheus, master of strings.
As we suspected.
What an awesome cutscene. Again, I love this aesthetic and just the stylized of this cutscene. So good, so great. The aspect of actually putting the gun to our heads and shooting ourselves to trigger our persona, that part we'll get into much more at the end of this video, but for right now, it's a cool thing. It looks awesome, and at that point, we are introduced to combat, where it's kind of funny to go from something cool like that to now watching these like little scrubs that we have to fight. And with it, again, the aesthetic continues with seeing the combat of of, hey, we get to pick our commands through a reticle of basically a gun and its revolving bullets. Basically, all we do is smack these dudes and kill them, and nice and easy until we pass out after combat. Also, I will mention we do level up, and when we do, we get to see that our persona leveled up to Orpheus. And I will say I'm super upset. When I first watched the cutscene, I didn't fully understood that it was a different persona that did the awesome move saving us, while we're stuck with this weird harp playing persona. I don't know, man. While we're unconscious, Igor explains to us what personas are and its connection to our psyche, and how, hey, speaking of which, you should go make relationships with people, because that will actually make your persona better. So please make friends, please. After we wake up, we get some exposition about Yukari and how her dad died, and how her mom doesn't have a great relationship. And it's like, hey, we're the same, right? Naruto style of like, hey, I don't have friends, you don't have friends, we're alone, right? We can be friends. And then from there, the next day just flies by. Like, nobody talks to us about what happened, which is kind of wild, until the next day. And then the next day, we get some exposition of what's truly going on and why we're actually here. Meeting in the meeting room, Shuji and Akihiko explains the dark hour to us. A little bit more about what's truly going on. The fact that, hey, the real problem about this dark hour, well, most people just go to sleep and don't have to worry about it. The real threat is the shadows, and how we have to deal with the shadows. And so Shuji, the dean, lets us know that this is a club called the Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad, known as SEAS. Weird name, I know, but this is the club that they have named as to the public through the school. It's a kind of like a low secret club, like, hey, it's just a club to the outside, but on the inside, it's this group that has been brought together, these stand users, to deal with shadows during the dark hour. And with us showing our potential by unleashing our own persona, we are then recruited to join SEAS. And I mean, I don't think there'd be much of a game if we said no, so of course we said yes. And with it, they do give us our own evoker. That is the point of the gun. We also get an armband to show that we're part of the club, because like, why not have uniforms and look cool in our club? That part's kind of weird. I mean, I like it, the stylized. It's kind of weird that it's an armband, but whatever. But the evoker being a gun is very interesting, and you know, the evoker is just supposed to be a trigger, you know, so why not be something that you pull the trigger, of course, right? Again, we'll talk more about the symbolization and what this truly means at the end of the game, but with that, we continue as we join the club, the Phantom Thieves. Nope, that's not what it's called, SEAS. And with that, we start to begin our first social link, the Fool Arcana social link. Again, we'll talk more about tarot cards and how they're used in this setting. Honestly, you could probably already tell I don't love this. I don't like the tarot cards. I don't. I think they're ultimately used in a way to kind of like just be a representations that you can kind of get some symbolizing from it. Again, I'll talk more at the end of the video, but that's my 10 cents for right now. But after that conversation, when we go to bed, during the dark hour, we are interrupted by another NPC, a mysterious boy. This is the same boy that had us sign our contract earlier, and he doesn't really give us too much information. He just talks about how he will see us soon, and with that, he disappears. Great. Awesome. Love that. But the next day, we get some exciting things, like Junpei joining the club. Well, kind of. He actually gets to move into this building because he might have the potential too. Because of course he might have the potential. I think it's funny that Yukari just like is not on board on it, even though the dean's like whole pitch for us like having the potential is like, hey, would it be cool if like someone in your class had the potential? Now it's like, hey, what if 2 people had it in your own class? At least in this situation, definitely seems like a little bit different in the fact that like Junpei was actually awake during the dark hour and was found. And, you know, since we've already established that only civilians who don't have the potential just sleep in coffins, that kind of rules in that Junpei might have his potential. So kind of makes sense to kind of bring him in. So it's kind of interesting to have him already kind of be in the know, even without a stand. But as the day goes by and we continue to hang out with Junpei, you know, making inappropriate jokes as, you know, kids do, we then meet up at the lounge with the whole squad as as we get told about the future plan of exploring Tartarus. What is Tartarus, you ask? Good point, Junpei. Tartarus is a structure that appears during the dark hour over our high school, small world. Of course, it shows up there of all places. And while for a long time there was only Mitsurure and Akihiko as Persona users, the Dean was a little bit hesitant to actually explore Tartarus. But now that there's more Moppets, more people to throw for a sacrifice, you're a little bit more willing to begin exploring Tartarus. And with being excited to understand anything about what's going on in this game, including what is Tartarus, we do head to the high school at night to explore it. Entering Tartarus, the ground rules is set that, hey, we, the character, will be the leader of our group as we go to explore Tartarus. Sadly, Akihiko is still injured from our last encounter, so he has to sit out for a bit. And so with that, we are the new leader. Junpei's a little butthurt about it, but yeah, you know what? Is what it is. Sorry, bud, but we are the protagonist. And so after manually saving, because you can't save enough in old RPGs, we begin our exploration of Tartarus. Entering the first block of Tartarus, Mitsurure sensei outside of Tartarus starts to explain some things. One, setting out that, hey, she is kind of our scout while we're in here. It's just us, Junpei, and Yukari. And beginning this dungeon crawl grabbing items, we then get let know that when we see an enemy, we have the chance to get the advantage in battle by swinging at it and hitting it first. I don't know why, but I love this mechanic in so many RPGs. Earthbound has a great one like this, and this one here has it. It's very, very jank in the sense of depending on your weapon, if you have a bow, as we see later, it sometimes makes it harder or easier to initiate the battle and get this advantage damage at the beginning of combat. Otherwise, sometimes the enemy will do it to you. But as we engage in combat against this Moppet, we are again introduced to the combat of Persona 3. If you've ever played a Persona game, this is very similar to those games. You have many options on your reticle of getting a swing with just your normal sword, your normal weapon. You have magic, which is, based on your persona and based on your magic meter. You have items that you could use, but the most important one that is different from this game from others and is super important is the fact of your command. You have a button where you can press to command your other people, your other characters, because guess what? Unlike a normal RPG where you get to pick any characters you want and you get to choose what they do, in this game, it took the classic style of you only get to control your character. Yes, this will bite the bullet later on in the game where there's different high stakes moments against bosses, and for some reason, Junpei decides to do the move that is not resistant or not super effective against the enemy. Clarifying if you haven't played a Persona game, but the game really likes to focus on finding weaknesses of the enemy. Similar to Pokemon, where you like to fight fire against grass because it's super effective. Here, it's even more brutal because if you find their weak point, they become stunned, and during that stun, if you have all many stuns, your whole team can make an all-out attack. Now, you gotta watch out because the enemies can also do this to you. If they fight your weak point, you get stunned for a whole turn. And again, if you are the only one actually getting to make your choices, you can't heal, and you could easily get bodied through this. It's a fun mechanic and feels really satisfying, but it's also terrifying because the enemy can also do it. Another thing I gotta mention is this music here. Wow, it's so good. It's so great. This battle music, you do gotta look forward to listening to this music for hours because this is the main track you will hear for combat. So I mean, look forward to that. The thing that is also different from my own experience through playing Persona 5 is actually after battle. Sometimes you get a reward for your battle. Not only do you get XP, but a potential item that is depending on what you grab, because sometimes they are shuffled and you get to have to pick, hey, do you want a healing? Do you want a item? Do you want actually another persona, as we will get into later? Hopefully you paid attention to what cards was mixed around and you picked the right one. It's very weird and goofy that they chose this, but honestly, I don't hate it. After that fight though, Mitsuru kind of like explains a little bit more of how this dungeon crawl is gonna go. On each floor, while there's enemies and items we can find, the main goal is finding the stairs to the next floor, the next level, as we ascend Tartarus. But there's also these little checkpoints, these little spots that lets us teleport back down to the hub world before Tartarus, kind of as a get out of jail if you are getting hurt or low on mana. And the game decides to show this through showing off another mechanic that is honestly not used a lot, and that is you can tell your party members while you're exploring the dungeon to just like not be with you and just go on their own. The risk of this is that if they run into enemies, you are not there to help them, so they could just go down on their own. So it's like it's a mechanic that I do not use much because it seemed not worth it. And after exploring Tartarus and getting back down to base, we grew as a team we reach our next level of our social link of the Fool, which is, you know, just our team. But even though as a team we are growing closer together, as we find the next day, as Mitsuri gives a supposedly really awesome speech and is supposedly popular as we're told, it does seem like there might be a little bit strife between Yukari and Mitsuri. But as we continue our school day, finally the game opens up to us and says, hey, you know what? You know how you're supposed to grow your social links with other people? Hey, how about you spread your wings, little bird? How about you go find somebody and start spending time with them? But before I could actually do this, the game stops us one more as Akihiko kind of says, hey, meet us at the police station to where we can get some goods. So navigating the town map, which already I don't know, I have mixed feelings about. I understand that it makes sense to have a fast travel in this way. You know, Persona 5 even has this. It was, I don't know, it's just interesting to have this charm of like, all right, just click on the next thing. Go on the town map, pick where you want to go. I don't know, maybe I've been spoiled by big old open world games. I mean, this is fine. At the police station, we meet Officer Kurosawa, who is a interesting character. He is the person who will be selling us weapons so that we can fight in, you know, Tartarus. It's very interesting though, because while this is somebody who we see as a civilian who does wake up during the dark hour and is awake for that, he is still somebody who doesn't have the potential, which is, again, interesting. I think it's just a way to have us get weapons in a way that makes sense and is easy. But as a story way, it's kind of interesting that it's an adult and not a kid. Like, that's the first time seeing an adult who's been awake who doesn't have the potential, just like our dean. So maybe that has some kind of meaning to it, or maybe not. That upcoming night, we decide to actually explore Tartarus, where we kind of explore more of the weird jank command feature of telling our other characters, our other companions of what to do. It's super jank. It kind of terrified me. And it was at this point, as we begin to explore Tartarus, that I started to understand what it was we were going to deal with, the pain of Tartarus. And it started right off the bat with us dying, as we died of our character, not others, not the whole team, but our character. If our character dies, we have game over. I don't know why games or RPGs choose to do this so much when RPGs have it where if the main character goes down, it's game over. This makes the combat super hard and super brutal, especially in this game where you only get to control your own character. You don't get to control your companions. It makes this so much more deadly of a battle system. And boy, if I have any kind of advice to anybody playing this game, please save often, because otherwise you're gonna lose so much progress, so many hours, and it's just gonna be pain. On top of that, it was at this point that I was starting to realize that this was the same kind of dungeon crawl that Persona 5 had, of going underground instead, this time going upwards, rising up, going up the levels. It is the same kind of mechanics, same kind of gameplay style, and I'm gonna be honest, that was one of my least favorite parts of Persona 5. And to see it here really sucks. But I was committed and I was open to seeing what this game decided to do with it. And so as we trudge through Tartarus, try and make as much progress as we want, remembering that in Persona 5 there was different segments in the game to where you would have to make progress, and you know, it was kind of important to be on top of that. So I did my best to right off the bat start off strong with making as much progress in Tartarus as possible. Now, this was as far as we could because sadly our party members do get tired and exhausted, which honestly I actually don't hate. I think it's kind of fun to have your characters actually feel like characters and get tired and exhausted and have to actually leave and kind of force you to stop making progress. The next few days, we meet Kenji, who seems like a character, a social link we're supposed to meet early on, kind of like those easy, like basic bread kind of like characters you're supposed to meet up and hang out with. Honestly, we hang out the one time, ate ramen, and then honestly, I sadly disappointed him as I rejected him to continue eating ramen because I was more interested in this other social link that had to do with Kendo. As part of the social link options that you have in the game gave us 3 different possible clubs to join, and we just decided to do the Kendo team. And with it, we meet a character named Yuko where we begin our social link with her as we join the Kendo team. Making more progress in Tartarus, we actually get taught the fusion spells. Basically, if 2 Persona users have certain kind of spells, sometimes they can actually combo into being a stronger spell. Now, this is hard to do and is quite rare to the fact that we sadly did not make the most of this. But honestly, these are the type of things I love. Chrono Trigger is a great example of a game that has combos in this type of way, and so I'm just glad to see this in any other kind of RPG that makes the most of actually making it feel like that you are part of the team, Avenger style comboing off each other. It's great. But after that progress in Tartarus and back in our normal life, we actually get this kind of like, normally if you're just going to go into the day, normally it'll just kind of like, it'll skip past school days unless there's some kind of question you got to answer. But besides that, it'll skip to the afternoon to where you could just do your afternoon activity of spending time with somebody. But if somebody wants to spend time with you, sometimes at lunchtime, it'll actually stop and actually have the student stop by to kind of literally say, hey, I would like to hang out. Would you like to hang out? And it gives you an option to either say yes or no. If you say yes, it makes it so that they're even more happy and it builds their relationship even more when you later on follow through with saying yes, you know, keeping your word. And if you don't, it actually makes them more disappointed. So we decided to be an honest boy, say no to Kenji, but we decided to say yes to Kazushi, who is part of the Kendo team and is somebody who I like very much. Sorry, Kenji. So after getting a good workout done at the Kendo team, we decided to again make more progress through Tartarus because what else are we gonna do? And it's at that point that we were able to finally find our first boss. Well, first Tartarus mini boss. I had to make this difference because there is a difference between the main bosses and the Tartarus bosses. And this one here was fairly easy. It wasn't too hard and had a good time with it. And with it, we were able to activate a device that was similar to our normal kind of like checkpoints that would bring us back. But this is a actual checkpoint, allowing us to jump from different floors. And now, instead of going from the very beginning, we can teleport to this floor. We actually feel like we have unlocked progress. And so yeah, the pacing of Tartarus is very much like get to the certain kind of floor that has the boss, and then once you beat the boss, then you have a teleport activated to actually teleport back from, which is great. I actually really enjoyed this kind of like progression. The next few days, we actually meet some other social links and start our journey with building a relationship with them. And honestly, there hasn't been any kind of social link so far that I've been disappointed by, except for Kenji. But besides that, every other one that we started to explore has been very interesting. Also, a side note I have to make mention, I really love that, and we see it more throughout the game, but that the characters actually have different outfits when they're lounging from their school uniform. Not only that, but when it's different seasons, they actually have different outfits. Again, it just makes it the immersion of this game hit way harder of actually these characters wearing different kind of outfits because they wouldn't wear a summer wear, a tank top during winter. And so stuff like that, small details, but I love it so much. Which then we got a pretty funny little like moment of like the principal giving his own little speech, even though there's like wasn't need for an announcement, only because Mitsuri's sensei, when she gave her speech, everybody loved it, and so he has to do his log out, drawn out like boring speech. It's a small thing, but I loved it a lot. But for the rest of this month, the game just continued in this pace of us continuing our progress through Tartarus, fighting more bosses and unlocking more levels, and continuing that pace as we find other social links and continue our journey through meeting other people and even the socials we already have of growing those. It was at this point that the Tartarus was okay. You know what? I wasn't hating Tartarus at this point. I was still skeptical and was wary about what it might be, but I was still optimistic and was open to see what they chose to do with Tartarus. And with the social links, I've been enjoying the social links a lot. I especially love the Kendo team. So far, the Kendo team has an interesting story of its main character, Kazushi, being a little bit overbearing, and I'm interested to see what becomes of that. The other one that I've just barely started that I'm interested to see how it goes is actually a one through us gaming of playing a MMO, interacting with somebody we don't know, and honestly, I'm just interested to see what it has. Like, why not? The gaming one seems fun. What? That was April. Going into May, we meet up with Akihiko, who is supposed to be resting, but obviously isn't, as he is feeling much better and wanting to get back into the fight as soon as possible. We actually also see a visitor who came to visit him that we don't know about. Some kind of school friend. I don't know. We're not told much more. Mysterious guy, though. Sadly, though, it seems like Akihiko is still not fully ready to actually join the team, so we have to continue making progress through Tartarus on our own, which honestly is fine. We keep on fighting bosses and keep on doing our best to just whoop on them, to the point to where we are finally able to make it to floor 16, to where we are blocked off, kind of similar to actually Persona 5. I know, crazy, right? I wonder where they got the idea from. So already assuming through playing Persona 5, there's gonna be different floors that we reach to, and that is the cap off point that as far as we can reach until we beat the next story mission, which we kind of had to wait for since it's based on time. Either way, it's kind of good to get it done with and meet that kind of section as soon as possible, because once you get there, you do have a teleportation to instantly get back to once it unlocks. So I don't know, I'm pretty glad that we are able to get this far already. It was also at this point that we found in the Velvet Room, we actually have these weird side quests that we could do, and honestly, I kind of like them. Sadly, we don't do it too much because sometimes the side quests were a little bit hard and jank, and I couldn't figure out because I wasn't smart enough and I wasn't going to look it up. So we miss out on a lot of the side quests, but some of them are kind of fun. Like one of them is I'd like to visit the mall, and so we actually, as a side quest, took Elizabeth on a date, which honestly was so exciting. It was really fun because honestly, she's just that classic, I don't know, she's an alien maybe, I don't know what she is, but either way, her actually going on the date was really fun because she acts weird, she acts alien to our world, and it's fun to see that. It was honestly a great time. As the days go on, we continue our progress through Tartarus, because even though we can't make farther progress, you know, going up with the floors, we can still grind and get as strong as we possible before our first boss, which honestly came up really quickly. On May 9th, during the dark hour, there was a full moon, and during it, we have an interaction between Akihiko and Mitsuri about she has a radio to kind of let us know where shadows are, and as they're fixing it, there was a shadow, a big one actually, similar to the one that we had last month. And with the squad being brought together, it was our job to go deal with it. If you're wondering why do we have to deal with it, the big answer is that, hey, if it just makes a mess, makes a muck, and breaks buildings, and half the city is destroyed, people will freak out in the morning when they see some of the buildings just broken. So we kind of have to go and deal with it. And with it, we get to see that Mitsuri rides a motorcycle, so that's cool. But sadly, she still lets us know that we are on our own and that we still have to do the hard work ourselves. Not even Akihiko is actually going to join us. But either way, we go in the monorail, which is shut down, so that's probably safe, as we head to a train where we heard of the location of a big shadow. But as we get on the monorail, it soon becomes a trap, as it turns out the big shadow wanted us to get on as it starts the train, and we just have to, I don't know, go deal with it as the train's going. Honestly, the setting was fine, and fighting the shadows as we made progress through the train was okay. Nothing big, nothing worry. Until there was a time limit, as we find out that, yeah, no, actually, the monorail is just gonna go off. It's gonna wreck, and like we actually gotta hurry up and like turn it off. Which honestly, having these time limits in combat reminded me, like the biggest one was honestly Final Fantasy VII. That was the first time of a time limit being introduced into mid combat of an RPG, and it had so much stress of like, I can't control my moves. Oh no, I'm sorry that my summon is taking so long. And so having that same feeling here was very interesting, and I think it did a good job of making me have to work hard at like hurrying to the boss. And once at our first boss, honestly, I don't know, I can't really show much of this, but like this boss instantly was like, I don't know, man, I don't like the aesthetic of the boss. It's obviously already sexualized. Why is it sexualized? I don't know why, but it just is. So not much to say about it because I don't know, the game doesn't tell me much about it except for that it's a sexualized boss. But once we beat the boss barely in time, because yes, even the boss fight was on a timer, we were able to just barely stop the train. With that, we grew as a team. Yay! Social links! We got some interaction between the dean and Akihiko about, well, it's good that we were able to take care of this shadow. We kind of need a new system because at this point, having the shadows make the first move is kind of dangerous, especially in this situation where we were led into a trap. This was also side noted with Suji just being a little silly joke of like, how he got here was by literally riding a bicycle, and I don't know, those small jokes, I love it. I love it so much. But in our next day, after defeating the first boss, what I thought was true was true. This is just like Persona 5 in the fact that, hey, yeah, once you beat the main boss, the main section of a story, you were then able to make more progress through Tartarus. It's one of those where I kind of like the process and the pacing of it, but at the same time, it does feel kind of bad when it's like, oh, I want to keep making progress through Tartarus, but I literally can't because the game just won't let me. I don't know. I can see both sides of it being good and also just kind of sucking. But exploring block 2, we do find some new enemies that instantly dust us, which again, you always gotta save. There's several enemies on the second floor that was instantly just killing us, which boy was that fun. So we decided to, you know what, make some progress in other ways, like, you know, maybe our smarts, and maybe give some time before we make more progress through Tartarus. So as time flew by of us, you know, ever so often exploring through Tartarus, while also focusing on different kind of social links that we have and different social links that we didn't have, I had a great time with this pacing. Again, this Persona pacing is really good. There's something about it that's very enjoyable of being able to have some role play and social links with people outside, while also having, you know, the Tartarus to actually explore. This pacing is just, I don't know, there's something about it that is really, really good. And it's wild to think that it's this game that really started this gameplay factor of you're going through Tartarus at night, but during the day, you are going to school and hanging out with people. Something about it is just, it works so well. I think a lot of it does help that like there's just plenty of characters that the game throws at you that are very interesting. Stuff like the TV Tanaka's show where it's like, oh, every Sunday you can like buy items through the show, and like, dude, every single time that theme hits on, oh, it's so good. It's so good. But as we continue to make progress doing this pacing ever so often, there is moments where the game kind of points to what's possibly going to happen in the future of the next story plot point. And this time it had to do with Akihiko kind of mentioning a new character that has possibly the potential, a girl named Fuka. So after being a pretty cool nerd, you know, and getting high scores in our class, you know, getting our charm for the other students up, and definitely not dying much, we were finally able to actually have Akihiko actually be part of our crew. And I learned really quickly that the characters they give us, they are not trained. They're not as the level we are. So we literally had to go through lower levels to try to like level up Akihiko. Very funny that they did this. I don't hate it, but boy, is it funny. During one of our classes, literally one of the teachers actually talks about Christians and the practice of prayer, and honestly, loved it. It was awesome. Glad to see you here. Why not? I'm all for it. But as we continue our progress through Tartarus, actually getting to the next like locked off area, which is, again, glad to be there, we then hear more details that kind of paints a little bit more of what might be happening as we hear about a missing girl. A few weeks later, and there's still talk about a missing girl. There's some saying that it has to be an angry spirit. Others saying it's ghost. Other people saying she just got bullied and ran away. It's unclear what has happened, but it's definitely not has to do with the dark hour. Definitely not. Speaking of the dark hour, the mysterious boy actually intrudes on us once more, saying that he, as he promised, showed up again and asked about how we're doing. And then he lets us know that, hey, in another week, the moon will be full again. Yeah, that's cool, isn't it? And then he disappears. Don't worry about that. That means nothing. So we continue our normal pace of making progress to Tartarus, leveling up as much as possible, getting pumped for the next boss, while also spending a good amount of time hanging out with social links that we can. Stuff like Yuko, who is not always someone you can always hang out with. So when you can, it's usually a good option to do that. But as we continue, we then get interrupted by Yukari, who lets us know that, hey, she's been doing some investigation about what's going on with these ghost stories, and it turns out it's probably not ghost stories. It has to do with the rumors and how they started. So, with getting roped into this investigation, we join Yukari with Junpei down to a shady part of the town to try to ask the people who were regulars at this spot of what was going on. And it's at this point where we started to get messed up by some people because we're just some high schoolers. But luckily for us, Shinjiro does come in to save us, and it's through him we actually ask him about what's going on and if he knows anything. Luckily, it seems like he does know information, and it turns out the 3 girls who went missing, all 3 of them were talking about how they had bullied a girl named Fuka, which kind of explains the reason why there's some people saying that it's Fuka's spirit, because honestly, she's still missing. So break down the situation once more. Girls went missing. They were found later in morning, and they were all rounded up in the hospital. Those were the bullies. They seem to have bullied Fuka, who is still missing and who is declared to be a ghost. That's kind of what's going on, kind of. But it seems like we weren't the only one doing investigations. Luckily, Mitsuri was also doing investigation, and it's through interrogating this girl that we find out that, oh yeah, no, all 4 of the girls, the 3 that were victims and this girl, all of them bullied Fuka into the point of actually locking her up in the gym of the high school. And also knowing that Tartarus is at the school, there's a good assumption that Fuka might be in the dark hour still. How does that work? I have no clue, but like it seems like she is stuck there. And so while there's fear that she is a goner because, well, it's been 10 days since this has happened, there's idea that, well, since the dark hour is a weird limbo hour, maybe time moves differently. So our plan? Well, let's just wait out and hopefully go to the dark hour here at the school, and hopefully we can find her. Hopefully not as a boss. Hopefully not as a boss. That would be honestly like a crazy boss, but hopefully not a boss. Before getting into Tartarus, we had to break into the gym, where we get some fun shenanigans of trying to avoid guards and whatnot, which is great. We also get a little cutscene of seeing the actual bully, Natsuki, actually having problems with like feeling guilt and feeling like she's gonna be the next target, while she is awake during the dark hour, which is don't know what that means. Either that means she's going to be a Persona user, or she might be like the cop, but she's a kid, so maybe she'll be a Persona user. I don't know. Either way, it's showtime. Time to tackle on Tartarus and find Fuka. And actually, luckily, we find her so quickly, because guess what? Small world, right? Tartarus is just so small. I don't know. I'm not too worried that we instantly found Fuka. I'm kind of fine with it, but it's whatever. And it's at this point that we actually see the moon. It kind of hits us in a way that like Goku turns into Uzaru, that like, oh hey, the moon is important. It actually turns out that, hey, every single time we've had a main encounter, a main boss, or a main story point at this point, there has been a full moon. And now it seems like the full moon might have a thing to do with this story. Well, we don't have time for that because now there's 2 bosses. Not 1, but 2 big bosses. Yes, that is the threat. And while it looks bad that we're fighting 2 bosses and Mitsuri is already grabbed, and it's like, oh no, we kind of need her for scouting, don't forget, we have Fuka, who, for a bit, was kind of looked at as potentially have the potential. Man, every time with these cutscenes, they're so good. They're so good. They hit so hard, and I love them so much. They just make the transformations so much better. But as we go into combat for this boss fight, well, this boss fight gets 2 bosses, we actually have, instead of Mitsuri, we actually have Fuka as our eyes, as our guide. And she actually helps by actually taking a turn and telling her to ask to actually like analyze. Within that next turn, we actually get get to see some of the weaknesses of the boss and we get a better idea of how the boss works. Honestly, I love this a lot. It's interesting because I'm used to Persona 5 and how it's just so free that you could see the weaknesses of enemies, which is kind of crucial in this game. But having it where you literally had to specifically take a turn to try to see the weaknesses is kind of interesting. And with it, we are able to easily take down the bosses. After the boss fight, we actually get a great character moment for Fuka where we get to learn that Fuka is honestly just a really nice girl. She cares too much, even to the point of even if her bully is confessing and saying sorry, she's not coming out here with how dare you be a bully and you know, trying to get her justice and getting her revenge. Instead, she is caring about the safety of her own bully. Even though this would be a great time to celebrate, as we move on to the next day, Yukari starts asking some interesting questions. She begs the question of hey, did Mitsuru Senpai really save Fuka because it was the right thing to do, or was it because she has the potential? Which is it? And it's it's a fair question, but honestly, Yukari, I don't know why you're asking me. I have kendo to do. But during the next night, with the dean and everybody assembled, we actually had Fuka and actually asked to see if she wants to join the club, since she does have the persona. She does say yes, of course, because I don't think why she would say no otherwise, especially for a caring person like herself. She has no problem with helping others. So yeah, we have a new party member, Fuka. And this leads in with her character growth and things going on for her with the Natsuke actually talking with her. And it seems like even she is different. She doesn't remember what has happened last night in the dark hour, but she does seem a bit changed, almost like her heart was stolen. I'm just saying, she does seem very different. For us though, we get bugged by the mysterious boy again, who is like, "Hey, you're cool. You're actually cool. You know that? Hey, you want to be friends?" And us being cool, we obviously yes, we have no problems. But we ask his name, and he seemed confused, like he didn't have a name, and so he decided to call himself Ferris. Why? I don't know. Weird interaction, but then he disappears again. I don't know. He's a weird kid. After that, Elizabeth does let us know that, hey, once more, Tartarus has been unlocked ever further, that you can make even more progress. So what do? We make more progress. This time, we finally are able to have 4 party members in our club, and this time, we actually get to have Mitsuri as a party member in combat. Fuka has full-on taken over her job because it seems like Fuka is just better in this capacity. That's kind of how it's worded. I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with having Mitsuri on the team. Sadly, she doesn't help us too much from getting bodied in Tartarus, but that's not that weird, I guess. Sometimes some of these bosses are just hard. Sometimes they've been easy, these weird floor Tartarus bosses, but sometimes, man, they just one-shot you and you're just stuck getting wrecked. Spending more time with the Kendo team, we actually get to learn a little bit more about what's going on here. We get to learn that Kazushi is actually pushing himself a bit too far. He seems to have a knee injury, but instead of actually taking the time to heal and rest, he has decided to push on to keep fighting, even at the risk of injury. Why? Well, that we don't know so far, but that's what we've learned so far as spending time with Kazushi. Very interesting. I can't wait to see more of what happens with this plot line. But sadly, that was the end of our time with the Kendo team, as it was time to find a new club, which I guess we could do art. I do like art. Man, there's a lot of painting going on, and I can't lie, I don't like painting. Do not like painting at all. It's not my skill. We also find a smoking monk, so that's cool. The game loves to give us a lot of different kind of social links, and so far I'm all here for the variety. It's been a great time. But after meeting a cool little dog named Kuro-chan, we decided to meet up as a group to where we discuss what we've learned so far, which is, hey, we think that every big full moon, there's going to be a big boss. There's going to be a big shadow that shows up. And not only that, but it seems like based on what we fought so far of the bosses, that the shadows are divided into 12 categories. Specifically, categories based on what we see in the segments of tarot cards. A specific style of tarot cards that are split up in 12. And with that, with already fighting several already, it's safe to assume that once we defeat all these bosses, we'll finally be able to deal with and destroy the Dark Hour, which is our ultimate goal. And so now with our goal clear of what we need to do, we have 8 more bosses to deal with. So to get prepped for that boss, we obviously go on another date with Elizabeth where we have more fun shenanigans because she's a weird alien because, that's fun. And we actually get some interesting cutscenes. So it turns out that there's a section in the lounge where you can actually go and you could see cameras that are set up in different rooms that kind of the point of it is to show little side stories of the characters interacting with other people or themselves, and you get to see a little bit more of the characters. It's fun, it's interesting. The problem is these, at the end of the day, are cameras that are showing on teenagers, which honestly, I don't like. I don't like at all. I mean, again, a lot of the stories are just lighthearted, like Mitsuri seeing Junpei's room being a mess and thinking that someone came in and robbed or messed up his place, when it turns out it's like, no, I think Junpei's just a messy kid, don't worry about it. Stuff like that is very fun. You get cool character moments with it, but as we'll see later on, there's some that happen there I'm like, come on, you didn't need to do that. 3 more things happen in the rest of this month that kind of hint towards the future of what might happen. The first one is the most obvious, as we show a cutscene of, during the dark hour, a group of people waking up an individual, a civilian, just to kill them. Some kind of group that is obviously going to seem to be a threat for us in the future. I don't know why one of them seems like Jesus. I don't know what that's about, but maybe we'll get an answer later on. The second one is we actually get to see Akihiko actually hanging out with Shinjiro and getting to talk about their past, and it seems like, Shinjiro is a Persona user, and it's interesting to see that they have a past, but he's not working with us anymore. And the last thing is actually from Yukari talking with Fuka about possibly helping her with finding information about Mitsuri. It seems like Yukari just this whole time has been having some kind of problem with Mitsuri, and I'm interested to see as to why. In the month of July, there's definitely 2 parts of this section, but as a theme, there was definitely a theme of sexualization. There's sexual themes in this month, which we'll talk about for sure. Now, I will say at this point, we're going to gloss over a lot of the aspects of, hey, we explore Tartarus and whatnot. You can kind of safely assume that for a lot of this, we are exploring Tartarus ever so often wherever we can, leveling up, stuff like that. Stuff like that, and even the social links, we're not going to cover too deeply because there's a lot of game to cover, and this is already a long video as it is. So I'm just going to say that to save us some time. But going into the next dark hour, which is interesting since it's kind of like this game does focus on months, but at the same time it doesn't. The big events don't happen on months, but on the moon being full, and I still kind of like it. It keeps me on my toes because, I don't always pay attention as to when the next cycle of the full moon is. So, I don't know, for some reason it just works for me. But on our next moon, we do have Fuka to actually kind of assess where it is and let us know where we can actually go to it to deal with it. But it turns out the location of this next boss is in a not safe for kids hotel, if you know what I mean. A love hotel. It's in a love hotel. So of course us kids go to the love hotel. So yay, that's cool. Already a great start. So as we go to this love hotel and we start exploring it for a bit, we finally go to the spot where we think we found the boss, it was really easy to get to. Instantly the boss we see is, it's a dude getting a massage basically. I don't know. Either way, even though we got affected by some weird effects by the boss, we were able to actually defeat the boss. Okay, we died. We did die. We did die. Dude, I'm not even gonna lie. This was one of those times where it's like, hey man, a full day went by that we didn't save. And so we had to make all our progress back. Okay. Either way though, we were able to get back to the boss and we were able to defeat the boss pretty quickly, but it wasn't okay. The boss was still there. I know, confusing, right? And so after searching around and finally finding a mirror that supposedly didn't have our reflection in it, which should have been a dead giveaway. Honestly, in a lot of games, you can't see your reflection in a mirror. So honestly, I didn't even think that was the option. So I was exploring for a hot second. But once we did find the mirror and we actually interacted with it, things went down. I'm not going to show you this cutscene. It's literally just a cutscene of showing a girl's body. I'm not doing that. You don't need to see that. You don't need to worry about it. But when we wake up, we have this foggy head in our dream and we can't think of what's fully going on. And we keep on getting asked as the shower's running, hey, basically go do your desires and actually go into the shower. Even when we said no, there's a lot of weird interaction of it kept pressing you to kind of say yes. Luckily we said no because that's not cool. Don't do that. Don't do that. sex and stuff like that is for marriage, and when you're married and you're together, and that's where it's good and healthy. Outside of it, it sucks. Trust me. And they're minors, so yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Either way, Yukari comes out. She gets mad that we're doing that, slaps us, runs away. And then there's supposed to be like a fun gag once we meet up that like supposedly a similar interaction happened between Junpei and Mitsururi. So that's a whole thing. I don't know. It's played off as a gag. It's lighthearted, so don't worry about it. But either way, it invigorated us even more with rage to go find the next boss and actually see where it was. And when we did, honestly, I liked the design of this boss. It's weird that like the whole idea of it was love and charming us, which meant we fought our own teammates, which made it very deadly, but luckily enough, we were able to defeat this really cool design boss. But something different happened after we defeated this boss. Instead of just heading back home instantly, there seemed to be a bit of a problem. Junpei kinda didn't like that we were looked at as the hero again. Definitely not gonna be a problem for later, don't have to worry about it. But also panning away, we got to see our mysterious trio of people who also interact in the Dark Hour, who again, I don't think it's Jesus. I don't know. Maybe he's not Jesus. Maybe he's not supposed to be Jesus. But I don't know. I feel like he's supposed to be Jesus. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Either way, we get a little hint of like, hey, maybe they'll attack us. But that was it for this boss. As days goes by and we continue doing our social links in Tartarus, we then have a meeting about what's been going on. And while it seems like the dean was going to talk about some things going on and how there's good news, Yukari had to interrupt. She had some questions she needed to ask, specifically about the Dark Hour and about its events and how did it originate? How did it start and why is it over the school? Supposedly there's an incident way back where there's an explosion at the school and a lot of people died. We heard of this information before, but we didn't know much about it. But now it seems like it's clear that that interaction played a bigger role.
My grandfather was obsessed with shadows. He wanted to harness their power and create something extraordinary.
Harness their power?
He assembled a team of scientists, and over several years collected a significant number of shadows.
He what? Damn, that's freaking crazy!
However, 10 years ago, during the final stages of the experiment, they lost control of the shadow's power. Consequently, the nature of the world was altered.
You mean?
Yes, Tartarus and the Dark Hour.
So yeah, with that bomb being dropped, was that too soon? Too soon to say bomb? With that news being dropped, yeah, there's a little bit more understanding of what's truly going on and the connections that some of our characters have with the actual origination of the Dark Hour and why it's such a threat to deal with Tartarus. It's not only is it just a problem in general, but it's a problem that was created. This wasn't just the way of natural life in this world. It was something that was caused and created and something that has to be dealt with. Sadly, though the information is good to be shared, it does seem like there's still a bit of a strife among the party which will need to be ironed out. Akihiko spends time with Shinjiro, kind of reminiscing about their past and their connections of when they met 14 years ago, and talking about how it's important for him to use his power and that he should join back with the club. Mitsuri and Fuka actually talk about possibly doing research on what's going on with the Dark Hour and what happened in that incident so many years ago. Junpei continues to struggle with his own role in this situation and his own self-value of what is his role in this situation. And Yukari deals with the past of a letter from her father about what has happened and her moving on, not being like her mother, to keep fighting, even for her dad. Even we get to reminisce about and deal with Pharos as he talks about the first time we've met. Now it's been several months since we first met, and time has truly have passed so quickly. And with our squad kind of being in a rough right now of figuring out where we're at and struggling a lot, luckily the chairman comes in to kind of help us out in this situation as offering a vacation for us to take a little break, because guess what? Sometimes doing things that's very stressful is stressful. You need a breather ever so often, especially in this line of work of where you're risking your life in Tartarus. You kind of need to take a break from that ever so often. But before we go on vacation, we do get introduced to another new potential, another new recruit, this time a kid. So yeah, he's not on the party yet, but I guess he'll be residing at base for now. The last thing we had to do before we go on vacation is make sure we're fully ready for the next time we can make progress. So we make sure to deal with the next level, get all the way up, our good diligence, get done with our homework. Fully get it ready so that we can finally relax and have our fun in the sun on vacation.
Awesome! There it is! Yakushima!
A few important things happen while we're here on vacation. One importantly is we meet Mitsururi's father, which we'll get into a little bit later. The second thing is beach time, baby, which with beach times you get beach shenanigans, which, it's just so fun to have like the crew of Junpei, Akihiko, and even our character trying to pick up babes. Like each one failing in so many different ways. It's so enjoyable. As I said with like meeting Mitsururi's father, this was actually pretty important because it actually gave us more insight about the incident and what truly happened when that incident for the Dark Hour. We actually get to hear that it turns out Yukari's dad actually died by the incident in the Dark Hour, which stokes even more flames between her and Mitsururi. It almost is like, hey, your family literally killed my father, and Yukari has to deal with that pain. Now, it's clear that Yukari doesn't hold any blame to Mitsururi. She's already forgiven Mitsururi previously before the vacation, but still, it's one of those situations where it's like, that's still a heavy blow to have to carry. The next day, though, they try to do a nature hike and try to have a good time, and us boys continue the babe hunt. Honestly, at this point, I'm interested to see what happens because you could have played a girl, and I wonder if it would have been the same. I don't know. Either way, we have our fun time trying to do a babe hunt, even though we all suck at Riz. It's so good. It's such a great time. But it's one of the babes that we try to Riz up that is quite interesting. This interaction of each character trying to Riz up obviously a character that we're gonna meet later is so great. I thought this was one of my favorite character introductions, is literally from our own characters trying to Riz up to then getting weird interactions to our character running away and us having to chase after her. It was so good. And once we had that, there was already warnings of like, oh no, there's a threat. There's like a tank or something out and about, like we gotta worry about. And then later on finding out that it turns out the girl is actually the tank in disguise. And we get introduced to the one, the only Aegis. Aegis is probably one of my favorite companions. I do know that I said Junpei was one of my favorites, but this one is up there. Now, it's not the best. We will get into who is literally the best companion in Persona 3, but this one is up here. I don't know, something about having literally a robot is awesome. It's weird that it's technically a mechanical maiden, that part's a little bit weird. Besides those part of it, I really love the idea of having just a robot. Not only do people have personas, but even robots have personas. I don't know, it's a great time and I actually really love it. And with the rough last few days of vacation, kind of being spoiled by bad babe hunting and finding out news about Yukari's father, we were able to have one last day in vacation to actually try to relax and have some fun, which is good to see, and which allowed for the squad once more to grow ever closer. Heading back home, it turns out that Shinjiro is actually getting bugged by the non-Jesus, who is asking and wondering if he's going to join the group. Basically, he's going to get back in the game and help us, and where he aligns with actually wanting to destroy the Dark Hour. And we get a little bit more understanding that it seems like this group of people actually want the Dark Hour to arise, to keep going. To them, it seems like if you got rid of the Dark Hour, you get rid of their self-worth. This mixed in with following up by Aegis literally following us, because her whole mission is for some reason connected with following us as the main character. Maybe it's just because we're the protagonist, but either way, having her just showed up with mission complete by like being an alarm clock for us is hilarious. And then having Yukari just being like, hey, what are you doing when you're not supposed to be in his room? Get out. And Aegis having no idea because she's just a robot doing her function. Like, I don't know. These kind of dumb interactions I love so much, and it's what I'm excited for. But the real question is how is she as a party member? Well, hitting up Tartarus and actually having her join the squad, she seems awesome because literally one, she just uses guns because she's a robot. Why not? That's awesome. She has an interesting function called Orega mode. I don't know how to pronounce that. Don't worry. Overload mode is basically what I call it. Basically, that's basically what she does is she puts her mode into overload where she just attacks, and then overheats at a certain point. It's a really risk reward type situation, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I love it. It adds varieties, and it's one of those things where it's like, it gives me a little bit more function where I'm like, nah, Aegis, just go for combat. Let me command you to just overheat. Do it. There's one last thing that happened this month that was sad, and that was an incident that happened in the Dark Hour. There seemed to be more shadows out and about. And while there's worry of it being another big shadow, even though it wasn't full moon, it turns out it wasn't. But what did happen was something terrible. Our doggo was hurt. Not only does this show that like, oh yeah, no, don't worry, this dog might have the potential because it was out in the Dark Hour, but it's like, no, why did we have to see it by him being like a awesome boy, literally being that classic like Hachi kind of dog, protecting shrines and literally getting hurt for it. It's such a sad moment. It's like, please don't get hurt. But it's glad to see that he's not dead, because like that would have been crazy if they just had the dog dead. And with that, Pharos once again bugs us in the middle of the night to let us know that, hey, the full moon's coming. Hope you're prepared. August actually had a pretty interesting start. Literally the fact that even though we hadn't been in the Kendo team for a while, because we chose the Kendo team and stuck it out, we actually got to start off this month with attending a tournament for Kendo. Again, something that I didn't think was going to happen, but it turns out we did. And sure, it was a connection to let us actually meet another possible social link, but still, I really enjoy this. I thought it was really fun to actually have our character outside of literally the main story having this much attention for this side social link. I thought it was great, and I really appreciated it. Moving on to the main plot though, it is time for our next full moon, our next boss, and this time it's in a mine. A mine. Well, okay, not really a mine. Technically, it's like an old subway section that's been closed off, but either way, we head down there to go take care of it. And instantly we got duped. This is the first time we've met literally this fake Jesus named Takia. Takia. I'm gonna call it fake Jesus. I can't pronounce it. Either way, turns out they got to jump us, and they make it clear that they don't like that we're trying to destroy the Dark Hour, and they think that the Dark Hour should be good and kept. So they lock us in. And while we couldn't really figure out how to get out, we figured that, well, there is a shadow down here. We might as well go deal with it. And when we ran down just straight to the boss, I actually liked the boss we found. It turned out to be a certain kind of tank that had an interesting mechanic to it. After attacking for a bit, if you do a certain amount of damage, it would actually separate, and then it literally would do combats differently, and then it would come back together where you can attack it. I don't know. Something about it was like, just this small change in the combat for this boss was very enjoyable, and that's one thing I've been enjoying. Every single boss we fought have been very different from each other, and I've been enjoying that. It definitely has kept me from being potentially burned out, especially with dealing with Tartarus and it being so samey. Definitely dealing with Tartarus has been boring at this point. It's been monotonous and a bit too samey. And compared to dealing with these bosses that still give me a run for my money and keep me on my toes. Luckily, after we defeated the boss, we were able to make contact with the dean to where we were able to share not only the information that, hey, we are attacked by a group calling themselves Strega that don't like us, and they're potentially Persona users, and they look like Jesus, I guess. I don't know what that's about. But not only that, we're also able to let them know that, hey, we're kind of stuck. Can you come get us? And luckily, because we already took care of the boss, it was safe to send some people to free us. So, whew, that was a close one. At this point, I've been doing my due diligence to do the save option in classic RPGs of every so once in a while going and grabbing items and make sure you have the right kind of equipment so that you have the biggest amount of defense as possible, and doing my due diligence on that side. And this time, the shop update was interesting to say the least. There's several different outfits that were like bikinis and stuff like that, which were like good items for certain characters, but honestly, like it's outfits that I'm obviously not gonna wear or give to my characters because it's weird to give a teenager that. Moving on a light note like that, we actually get a interesting interaction with Pharaohs. With the conversation we've been having with Pharaohs, it's been clear that he doesn't fully understand or fully remember everything. It seems like as we play the game and defeat bosses and make progress through the story, we also make progress through his foggy memory, to the point where he brought up that the end is coming, and the thing is, it's not a certain somebody that's doing it, but it seems to be something that everybody has wished into existence, and kind of begs the question of like, hey, why would someone do that? We reply with like, why? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants the end to happen. But he brings up a great point of, well, are you sure? Some people want peace from the suffering, from this awfulness that's been going on. They would like it to end. And honestly, when he puts it that way, that screams the second coming of Christ with Christianity. The fact that we are longing for the new heaven, the new earth, of literally heaven, and after the second coming of being in the new Eden and being in peace with God, the eradication of sin and painful torment of what we're living in now. And it's like, oh yeah, when you put it that way, I guess you're right. I guess we would like the end. That's why when people talk about stuff like other kind of beliefs of like reincarnations and stuff like that, it's like, really? You think the best that things are is here on earth right now? That sucks. But enough of that. Everybody quiet down, because the bestest of boys, Kuro-chan, is joining the squad. We don't even get like a story moment of Kuro-chan literally unleashing its persona. It's like, it's such a Chad that it already has it. It already has its persona used, so we already are just like, yeah, why not? Why not this dog that has a persona join the team? Why not? Because he's the bestest of boys. Not only that, but as like a social leak, it's fun because you can actually sometimes take him out on walks at night to the shrine that he is protecting, and it's great. Sometimes he gives you items, and even sometimes, as we see later on, we actually go with other teammates and we get fun little conversations. And honestly, man, I love it so much. This is the best companion in Persona 3. I do have to make the note that even though we're making good progress, you know, we have Kuro-chan on as a teammater, which is awesome. Dude, honestly, every single time we go to the next floors, we still get bodied so easily. Like, the challenge of Tartarus is never just easy. Like, it feels like it's always a struggle. And like, that is one thing that I've enjoyed about this, is it's just tough. The downside, obviously, is if you don't save, you lose a lot of progress. And like, with the save floors, how I've already explained, of you can make certain amount of progress, and you could, if you find a little teleport room, you can go back room, but you really kind of want to just make as much progress as possible and get to the boss room so that you can find a save room. That's kind of like your more goal, so you kind of risk going farther than you probably need and easily getting bodied and losing so much progress, which that part has sucked a lot. But like, still, like, boy, these rooms are just they're tough. One thing we do try to help us with our journey through Tartarus is equipment. As I mentioned before, we try to do more equipment, and yeah, I think I found some equipment that will help us a lot. But outside of combat, we've gotten some interesting things happen. One, we got some interaction between Akihiko and Shinjiro, as he keeps on trying to talk with them and trying to persuade him to joining the team and get back into the fight. It sounds like there was an incident 2 years ago where a close friend of them's, a family member of some sorts, died, and he blames himself for it, and that's part of the reason why he doesn't use his powers. The other thing we get is an interesting interaction between Junpei and a certain character that we've seen before The irony here is so great. We've clearly seen her with fake Jesus, and we know she's one of the bad guys, but Junpei doesn't. And so seeing Junpei just casually interact in this time where he's already having struggles of him himself and feeling kind of like out of place and alone, seeing him interact with this girl several different times and slowly, interact with each other and have some connection is kind of interesting. Good news, everybody! If you liked Elizabeth being awkward on dates, you'll be in for great news, because guess what? Aegis is actually getting to join us at school, which means we get more fun, awkward interactions in public, which is great. The dumb bit is that like Aegis wanted to go to school so that she could like keep watching us and basically protect us, the main protagonist, and like Yukari just made a offhand joke to Mitsuri's senpai, and it just ended up working, and so now she's here. It's great. I love it. It's dumb and silly, but I'm all for it. We also get more interaction between Akihiko and Shinjiro. This time we as a player are actually there, as like literally Akihiko is like, hey, here's your stuff, your equipment to be a Persona user, because guess what? There's actually like Sturga's like a problem. There's other Persona users out there that could be a threat. And so finally, Shinjiro actually joins the party, which is awesome. We get to see more interactions of Junpei with Chidori, which is honestly great. I really enjoy seeing their relationship and them interact with each other. Like, still, there's not a clue that like, oh, they're actually enemies, and getting to see them interact and see like what they care about and what they like, what they don't like is very interesting, and I enjoy it a lot. Seeing this relationship and seeing it together is actually really great, even to the point of like seeing how it pushes the story. With the next full moon happening and everybody joining together to go fight the next shadow, Junpei is missing. Nobody knows where he's at, but it's like, well, I guess we better go to the mall anyways to find the monster anyways. Can't wait on Junpei, but hopefully we can find Junpei. As it turns out that Chidori betrayed Junpei and actually kidnapped him. The reason why they kidnapped Junpei is simple. Basically as a ransom to try to prevent us from dealing with this next shadow. If we can't deal with this next shadow, then that means, the dark hour stays. Even still, Junpei stays strong in his resolve, and we take on this, again, another coolly designed boss. It's kind of interesting, the pacing though. Like, honestly, while like taking on this boss was really fun and enjoyable, it was interesting the pacing to get to this boss was quick, and it was just instantly, okay, cool, we're here at the boss, fight the boss. And that's partially because part of the story was taken up by Junpei, what's going on, because after we dealt with the boss, the next goal was, hey, where's Junpei? And luckily Fuka was able to find it, and we were able to go and help. We also get more interaction between Junpei and Chidori, as like there's conversation of like, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you lying? You don't have to do this. Why do you listen to them? And getting this interaction is very interesting. But luckily, when the group was finally able to find Junpei and save him, Junpei was able to be the GOAT and actually prevent Chidori from using her persona, which is clutch. The fact that you have to use your evoker, your gun to trigger it, kind of similar to like Attack on Titan, kind of preventing the attackers from triggering their own Titan powers, is kind of crazy and amazing. And basically, we now got Chidori to interrogate to see what's going on and what is the real goal of Strega. The next few days, the squad tries to interrogate Chidori and try to figure out more information about what's going on, but literally nothing's happening. She's not saying a word, and a few times she does, it's through her literally breaking out and not really expressing straight mind and just screaming out in Medea, which seems like possibly her persona, but it's unclear. But eventually, Junpei, after almost being called out as having an obsession for caring about Chidori and looking out for her, finally, after literally one of the days giving her a new notebook for caring, she finally says a word and finally says Junpei. It's a touching moment to see their relationship. And then one day, when they're just themselves just together, literally Chidori is able to use her persona power to literally like heal flowers. And how it's presented this way, it's not technically it's healing, but I don't know, it feels much more powerful than that. And it's one of those left out. It's like, don't you have that same power? And in some regards, Junpei doesn't. It's one of those moments where you could definitely see Junpei getting sad because he wants to be the strong guy, but like in this situation he's not. When honestly it's the other way around, of like he's the one person who's able to build a relationship and talk with Chidori and make progress this way through having this connection, and like, you know, it's a different kind of strength. As we try to make more progress through Tartarus, getting by left and right, we have another conversation with Pharaohs. Pharaoh's bringing us the time that has passed, and the fact that 3 seasons have passed by, and even though there's change in those seasons, some things stay the same. And no matter how much time goes by, it's like, when this is over and the tower is broken and the dark hour is gone, will their friendship be the same? They hope that their friendship will be forever, but will it? And then we got Kenji over here bringing up the Gourmet King. Like, I should care about him. I do care about him. I actually do his social link. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Either way, when we eventually do make progress in Tartarus, though, we finally make it to Block 4, where now we're getting a good old Gotti vibe, where everything's golden, and we deal with very, very strong samurais and tanks that mess me up. I don't know why, but every time we go to a new floor, I always get messed up so quickly. Wrapping up this month, we have a conversation with Igor. He summons us to ask once more and see, how are we doing? Are we fulfilling our job? Are we doing our purpose? Are we ready to fulfill our contract? Kind of keeping us in check to say, hey, have you been growing your persona? And kind of giving us a little reminder that, like, hey, that's important. Luckily we have, so I shouldn't be worried, right? Oh, we also get a bunch of like video recordings, again, as I mentioned last time, and this is probably the last time I'll bring it up, but like we got some really fun ones. Shinjiro actually like interacting with Kuro-chan and actually like having like, instead of being the rough, gruff kind of like punk, he actually like, oh, he cooks, and like, you know, he has that facade that he hides from others, and like, you know, seeing those kind of interactions is fun. We get Aegis being weird as always, you know, a lot of fun stuff. But like, again, as an example as to like the thing I have a problem with is there's one about Mitsururi who's like literally one time being in bathrobe and then she walks off screen, and it's like the whole bit is that, oh, she took off her towel, oh, she was naked, and like I hate it. It's pointless, and why? She's a minor, everyone, okay? Stop it. As we go to the full moon and Fuka analyzes where the next target is, we quickly go to the location and actually deal with the boss. I will say this is probably one of my favorite bosses. Like, of all the main bosses we've had in Persona 3, this was probably one of my favorite. Now, we did lose to this boss several times, and that's because this boss is a chance boss. Literally different effects of either like attack up or attack down, either to the boss or to us happens. Different damage goes off by like the boss just because of a roulette wheel. And honestly, I don't know, it's something about it was really fun, and I wasn't expecting it. And again, as I mentioned before, of different bosses really being different, this was an example of them following through with that, and I honestly really enjoyed this. This was such a blast fighting this boss. But it definitely was a boss that once we beat it, like, nothing happened. Like, and literally our characters make a point of saying that. They're like, Strega didn't step in to become a problem. We just found it, and then we went and dealt with it. It's like, that was interesting. Okay. And that's where we got the main point of this event, this full moon. As we go over to Ken. As we go to this kid Ken, we have a conversation between Ken and Shinjiro. It was 2 years ago that Ken's mom died. And it turns out that was the person who Shinjiro sadly wasn't able to protect. It was the one that has caused him to not be able to fight and not use his persona, and how he takes responsibility, even to the point of being okay with Ken killing him and taking revenge for it. And as fake Jesus tries to come in to actually kill them for what they did with Chidori and actually take back Chidori and that whole situation, and that's when Shinjiro is able to actually step up and protect others.
What is the meaning of this? Why would you risk your life to save this child?
Shinji!
How very disappointing.
Shinjiro-senpai!
What's with a long face? Isn't this what you wanted?
No, senpai!
It's all right. Give yourself time. Let your anger be your strength. Come on, kid. You're just a kid. You've got your whole life ahead of you, so don't waste it. Make it your own. Okay?
But I...
Aki, take care of him.
I will.
This is how it should be.
As the school does give a funeral for Shinjiro, since he was still technically a student, it's very interesting to see the differences between the interactions of people in the crowd who don't know Shinjiro to be like, oh, who is this dropout who didn't even care? Like, why should we care about it? Compared to us, the players who knew what he did and what he gave up, and seeing the difference there. In this time of mourning, we have moments where Akihiko has to deal with the loss of Shinjiro. And it's through mourning that and coming to terms with that loss that he's able to evolve, grow, even as himself, and become stronger. And it's through that strength that not only himself, he's also able to help out other people, like Ken, who is struggling with this grief of not only his mom, but also coming to terms with Shinjiro and what he'd played a part of it. He's also able to evolve. And it's through coming to terms with our own grief and our own problems and struggles and self-identity that we are able to grow. And that is exemplified here through Ken and Akihiko and the loss of Shinjiro. Akihiko and Ken weren't the only ones who evolved as individuals. The interaction between Natsuki and Fuka has been pretty interesting. It's cool to see that their relationship has been a bit better. Natsuki is still a bit of a jerk. She's not quite a bully anymore, but she's still mean at times. But Fuka and them are growing closer and actually have a friendship together. And it's through them coming together and sharing and growing closer that Fuka is able to grow, and she herself is able to evolve too. Even later we see Mitsuri and Yukari even coming together and talking. Moments where they wouldn't before because of the strain in the relationship because of the past. Them coming together and putting that aside and moving forward, the strength of that. Here being in the setting in this month, it's kind of interesting. The month of November is a big one. There's been so much that's been leading up to this point, with different characters actually growing and evolving, and different hints of even Pharaoh's kind of hinting that the fall is coming soon. And with literally tomorrow being the last shadow we have to deal with, knowing that we're probably going to have to go up against Strega to deal with them, there's been a lot leading up to this moment as we try to finally destroy the Dark Hour and bring peace. So with that, there's of course has been some reminiscing of how it's been, how we got here, what all has been going on before we eventually take the steps to proceed towards our final encounter. As we meet together during the full moon, ready for this last shadow, so confronting Strega, we have a confrontation with them as they try to stand and stop us from defeating the last shadow. The actual fight against them is kind of interesting in that, one, it's not that hard, and two, it's kind of interesting for us to not fight a shadow, instead fight like another Persona user. I was expecting it to be more cooler, but honestly it wasn't, so that's slightly a bummer. But after we beat them, there's a whole like conversation, like Fake Jesus kind of goes on a rant about like, you know, existence and all about that, and then is about to like give his life up, but then like his buddy Jin is like, hey, don't be reckless, come on, fight another day, you know, come on. So he takes him and jumps off the bridge, which I don't know if that's really the safest option. If anything, that might as well be dying, but we don't have much time to focus on that as we are confronted by the last shadow. Now, this 12th boss is honestly really interesting. Again, I've said that about a lot of the bosses, but I really like the interaction with this boss of, it has like two phases. One when it's up in the air, can't really be interacted. There's stuff on the floor that you have to like kind of time and like make sure you kill them and be able to drop it so that it can fall on the ground and you be able to take it out. And like that fun interaction mechanic-wise was very enjoyable. I really enjoyed this last shadow. After defeating the 12th shadow, it was finally done. We defeated the Dark Hour, And now it's time for celebrate. There's a little bit of hesitation of we really did it, but it's finally time to celebrate. We have finally brought peace and we don't have to suffer anymore. And so with some excitement caused, especially from Junpei about having sushi, we look forward to our celebration. For the first time ever, instead of at night, Pharaohs meets us in the morning, kind of talk to us. He brings up how the weather's nice and how everything's great and how things are changing. With all of the shadows defeated now, Pharaohs actually finally has all of his memory. And with that, he says his time has come and he must leave. And that this is farewell. He doesn't want to go, but has to. And there's a bit of sadness there. As Pharaohs talks about how it's sad and doesn't want to leave his friendship, but has to. His time is up. And he says farewell and leaves. But now it's time for celebration. Everybody's kind of waiting for the chairman and Aegis to get back. He took Aegis to the shop to get it tuned up after our last fight. And as we wait, we did decide to actually, take a photo.
Come on, quit fooling around, Junpei.
Hey, knock it off, will ya?
And honestly, while it's not the perfect photo, it really showcases a lot of the party dynamic in a way that brings so much joy to my heart. And since we can't wait forever, we start to dig in and start to celebrate, enjoying plenty of the food. But that is until midnight happens. The party thought it destroyed the Dark Hour. They didn't. The Dark Hour still exists. Heading to Tartarus, that's where we find not only the chairman, but also Aegis. And it's where we learn from the chairman that this whole plan, dealing with all 12 shadows, was part of his plan and was destined to be reunited. That dealing the shadows was the only way to bring about the fall. So yes, it turns out the chairman was evil. He was using us for 10 years. He's been planning this to sacrifice us to the fall, the harbinger of the fall or something like that. And this for 10 years he's been wanting to kill Mitsurugi's father. And it doesn't seem good since Aegis seems to be controlled by the chairman.
Father. Father!
Aegis, we will end this. Execute the sacrifices now.
Aegis! Damn it, snap out of it!
Finish them, Aegis! What the? Damn it, you defective machine! I'll do it myself. What the?
Koromaru!
You don't get it, do you? This useless, pathetic world will gradually fester over time. Only its destruction can bring about its salvation. And then, at long last, I will rule over the new world. I was so close.
Well, luckily nobody got hurt. Oh, Whoops. Okay, somebody got hurt. Oops. Even though Kuro-chan was the GOAT and saved the day, someone did die. Yeah, sadly, Mitsuri's father did die. And moving forward, we're kind of in a weird spot to where, well, we thought we knew what we had to do to deal with the situation, but we really don't anymore. We don't know how to deal with the Dark Hour, and all we know is this thing about the fall, and heard this conversation about the fall and how that's going to happen. And we're kind of left to this point where it's like, well, I guess we just got to get strong and hopefully be prepared for when we get more information. With a small ray of hope, though, Fuka does give Uraraka a hard drive, a video that the chairman had, a video that Uraraka might like. And as she watches it, it turns out to be her dad. And it's through watching this video and finding out more information about what happened and how wasn't just part of the bad guys, wasn't working for Mitsurui's grandpa to actually create the Dark Hour, but instead saw the problem with the idea and was actually made the right choice to try to sabotage it. It's through that Yukari is able to find closure, and through that is able to evolve. One more time, we get summoned by Igor to remind us that, hey, no matter what has happened or what's going on now, I don't care. Just keep in mind, you did sign your contract. So, yeah, keep in mind whatever choice you make. So that's fun. Junpei has some more interesting conversations with Chidori about her choices and what she ended up doing, and kind of her feelings towards fake Jesus and kind of what was going on there, and seeing how she is with all that. And it turns out, and that's where we get to find more information about how she's scared and it hurts and how she's struggling a lot. As a side note, we got this super cool summon called Thor. I don't know if you've heard of him, only because we've maxed out our social leak with the Kendo team. It's awesome. I love that was the payoff for the Kendo team. It's so great. I love it so much. With how it actually helps us with combat, I mean, it's kind of good. Like, as I mentioned before, in these high levels, they are not easy. So we are doing our best to make plenty of progress through Tartarus, but boy is it rough. But the next interesting thing that does happen is at school the next day, there's a new student who arrives. Somebody who clearly does not look like a regular NPC. And it's where we get introduced to Ryoji. And at the very least, it does seem like we need to be careful of this character, especially since Aegis is literally being like dangerous to this character. Definitely someone we need to watch out for. After countless more hours to Tartarus, we were finally able to make it to Block 5. And definitely not the type of area I was expecting. Again, I should make mention that Tartarus has been the same. Sure, we get different enemies sometimes, different variations, and the main difference is the location looks different. Like, it has a different color palette. But besides that, Tartarus is still Tartarus, which at this point is kind of whatever. I really, really could care less about Tartarus at this point.
Kyoto, huh? Talk about boring.
You don't like it? Personally, I think it's one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Whatever.
Yeah, man, it is time for not only one vacation, but another vacation. This time through a field trip. It's very cool to get to see characters as we, again, just have kids getting to be kids for once, as different kids get to interact. This time, starting off with Yukari and Mitsuri coming together. And it's through them caring for each other and actually talking and growing with their self-identity and mourning and growing through that, again, Mitsuri is able to evolve. As we continue our vacation, we get to see ourselves in Yukata, so that's pretty cool. I like that. And instantly it seems like the one person we were supposed to be worried about is like instantly just part of our friend group, which is interesting, I'll say the least. As we begin to have a classic shenanigan moment with the group of boys. Kind of like how we had last time on the beach with finding babes and having our babe hunt. This time, you know, there's different levels in the sauna where it's like, hey, at this point it's for guys only. And then later on it's for girls only. Well, sometimes it can be busy when all the guys are there. So you just wait an hour after the guys leave, and then you have the sauna to yourself. Isn't it great? Well, not great when it turns out girls are supposed to be there. As even though the boys are hanging out and having a great time, it turns out the girls are showed up. And you can't really say to the girls like, hey, sorry, we didn't know that it was your guys' time. We were just spending more time. You're going to seem like a scummy guy who's trying to take a peek. So we got to hide. So we get this fun little like hot spring minigame where we got to hide from the girls. And honestly, I thought it was really funny. So of course I had to save scum to see what would happen if we got caught and what would happen if we evaded the girls. If we got caught, we got blown up. And the funny part was that it even played through to the next day to where like when we were having a rough time on our last day of the field trip, even the girls were upset and was having none of it. And we had to deal with that. That was great. And then going into the next one, if we actually succeeded, they just didn't know. And whenever they walked by to say some few things of like, how we do, everyone was just like, yeah, we had a good time. It's that small little interaction of choice where it's not a big thing that's like altering the main path of the story, but it's a small change that depending on your actions, like your choices do matter and have an impact. And I really enjoyed it and thought it was funny, especially for something so small and so silly. When we got back from our field trip though, trouble was waiting for us, as fake Jesus actually paid a visit to Chidori, and with it we had an opponent, as Chidori literally called a fight towards us. Junpei tries to do his best to deal with her, but a fight does break out, and okay, it's a 1v4, like we easily dust her, okay, like that wasn't a threat. But Junpei tries to show care and tries to go by Chidori to try to see what was going on. Why did she betray them once more? And it's at that point that we get to see fake Jesus again, but this time there's a twist, as they're ready to just shoot and kill Junpei. So quickly they just got Junpei out of nowhere. Like, I don't know why they don't do that sooner. I don't know why we didn't have a whole battle, but we have this dream state where Junpei is in the hospital bed, and this time it's Chidori at his side. And as they have a conversation about each other and how it's clear that Chidori doesn't want Junpei to die, that Chidori gives her life to Junpei. How does it work? I honestly don't know. I don't know. Weird Persona stuff. I don't know. For some reason, her Stan was able to give life to Junpei, and yeah. And so, of course, Junpei evolves, because of course that happens, and blasts fake Jesus out of there, which is crazy. But with the fight over and back home, there's time to mourn again, as Chidori's dead, and Junpei has to deal with that. And looking at the last sketchbook that Chidori has, Junpei finds a sketching of him. Chidori's last thing she did was sketch Junpei, really showcasing the love that they had for each other. And with that, our group level up. We grew even closer together. Yeah! High five, Junpei! At the beginning of December, there is a confrontation between Ryoji and Aegis, as it's clear that she understands who Ryoji is and why she felt threatened this whole time. And Ryoji knows it too, as it seems his senses has finally come together and he fully understands himself also. As Aegis challenges Ryoji, declaring that he is the enemy, that he is a shadow, and that she is a machine built to destroy enemies, and that this is not their first time meeting each other, but that they fought before, and that this time she declares to win.
Yes, 10 years ago, the night I was born into this world, I set foot on this very bridge.
The sole purpose of my existence is to destroy shadows. For that reason, I was given a personality and a persona.
They said I was death, the 13th arcana that was never meant to be. And I wasn't in this world for long before parts of my body escaped me, leaving me incomplete, as I was when I met you.
Even so, your strength was far greater than I anticipated. The only possible alternative was to seal you away. And as circumstance would have it, a suitable vessel was available. A human child standing nearby. So I did what was necessary.
I see. So I was confined within him. And I led him to my 12 missing pieces without realizing it. And then... I remember everything. It all makes sense now. Who and what I am.
Palladian!
Stop, don't be foolish, Aegis. There's no way you can win. I'm different than before.
A machine is created for a purpose. Mine is to defeat you. I exist for nothing else.
It doesn't have to be that way.
I am sorry. I have failed. A machine is worthless if it cannot fulfill its purpose. I'm sorry. I'm afraid.
After Aegis's defeat, everybody was able to show up, and it's at that point that Ryoji is able to tell them the full story. Now fully understanding everything that's going on, he understands what is to come. Ryoji explains that he is the key for the fall. The fall in this case is Nyx. Nyx is the true threat, and is the one that will be coming to bring everything to an end. He expresses that it is impossible to defeat Nyx, that it is not a battle, anything that can happen, that just like time, how it continues, this also continues, even though we have characters like Junpei who believe otherwise. The choice Ryoji gives to everybody is to kill him, that without him, the key won't be able to be used. Ryoji explains that the only choice they have is to kill him, that if they kill him, he will disappear, and along with it, all the memories of the Dark Hour, everything will disappear. Will it stop the fall? No. But it will make everyone oblivious to the fall and allow them to go to the end in peace with ignorance. He explains that all that waits otherwise is despair, as you guys wait until the end for the fall to happen, and that with knowing that pain, all that there will be is despair. And so he explains that he gives a due date for everybody to make their choice. Until December 31st, on New Year's Eve, they have their choice to think about and come to the terms of which would they rather choose. To kill Ryoji, making him disappear, and losing all memories of what has happened and what will happen, or to live with knowledge and know of the fall to come. So while there's no big battles that happens for the rest of this month, this rest of the month is a heavy month, as it's time for our characters to make choices, to come to terms with who they are and who they want to be, what they want for the future, and what they have to deal with. It's actually really funny that like during this time, Akihiko brings it up that it's like, man, it's kind of wild that we're still going to school during all of this while knowing all of this. And it's like, you know what, you're not wrong. And throughout time, as the rest of this month goes on, different character processes where they're at. There's several different conversations of what they should do. And of course, during this whole time, we do hit up the Tartarus, of course, because we gotta get that grind going. Never forget. But as the month flies by, and different party members meet us with other people and talk about what has happened or what's going on, slowly each one of them do come to term with the resolve and what they want. Just in time for New Year's Eve. It's not even until the day before New Year's Eve that we actually get to see Aegis again. Sadly, she was damaged and bruised, but luckily she was able to come back so that she herself is able to make a choice too and join the party in deciding what they should do. when Ryuji gives his choices to everybody. First, he asks that we, our protagonist, meets with him alone first, that they have a conversation. He brings up the fact that, like, it's weird that, like, you know, we used to hang out and whatnot, and he had a different name, and honestly, I hate it. I hate it so much. I do know that they didn't want to be on the nose, but, like, when you have the character design like this, you might as well should have made the character design look like the character, the mysterious boy we saw before of Pharaoh. I think at least that would have been nice, because, like, the character looking totally different kind of sucks. I hate that. I hate that. It's a side note. But then Ryuji brings up the reason why he called us up here. He's decided that at the end of the day, while we can make a choice as a group, he is still allowing us as the individual to make the choice. If we wanted to kill him, we can make the choice. If we wanted to let him live, that we can make the choice. That we are the only ones who truly can make the choice. Super selfish, and honestly, like, as a character and as a player, I'd be like, nah, the other people have a right to make a choice. This was another thing where I decided to save, and I decided to see what happens if we kill Ryoji. If we live in ignorance. With 2 months passing without us realizing, we just continue our life living. We meet up with Kari, and everybody kind of makes mention about Aegis and how, who's that girl looking over here? What's her deal? Weird. Weird that she just ran off. I don't know what that's about. But as we continued through our life, and while there's different conversations about, look at Mitsuri Sensei be so ignorant with her speeches and long-winded, And doing it, Yukari and Junpei talk about having a graduation party. You know, we don't have anything crazy going on. Let's go to karaoke. Let's go sing and have some drinks. As the credits roll at the end, we get to see what happens in the end. One, I have to say, I'm really glad the game gave an ending for that. I really love it. I love, again, the choices here. Like, sometimes just allowing the player to make the other choice of the quicker ending, I'm okay with. I love it so much. I love it being an option. This is an RPG. Let me make some choices. So, say scumming it up, we bring it up, and we tell Ryoji that, nope, we do not want to kill him. He tries to make it clear that, hey, he is not human, that he is a shadow. It's okay to deal with him, and that there's no other way. He tries to make that clear, and it's kind of cool to finally see this other persona that we saw at the very beginning of the game that looks way cooler than the Orpheus that we have. By the way, we stay resolved, and we decide not to kill him, and bring it back to the party, where everyone else agrees that no, they do not want to kill Ryuji, but instead want to find another way to deal with Nyx and to deal with the fall. And with it, the party grows closer. Yay! We have a deadline. 1 more month. Where on January 31st, we will have to face Nyx. Many like making New Year's resolutions because it's a break, a change in the year, a time for something new, and we see that right off the bat. There's a bit of confidence. While there's supposed to be a loom of depression with the incoming threats, there is a bit of confidence going on as we try to still celebrate and have a good time with New Year's Festival. Even outside of the New Year's Festival, we even head towards Tartarus because now it is time to go to the top of Tartarus. Breaking away one of the last gateways in our way, we proceed up Tartarus, where we actually get a new social contract. This time, it's one solely for defeating Nyx. I will say this time going up Tartarus definitely wasn't as bad. I was definitely more worried this time that it was going to be rough like the previous times, but we made good progress and we're even able to make it to our last blockage. There's one more blockage that we'll have to wait until the day on January 31st where it'll be unleaved and we'll be able to face Nyx. But we kind of did that the first day of the new year, so now it kind of feels weird that like, we did that. Now what? And the answer is, hey, grow your friendship and your social links, which I am down for. We have a great conversation with Junpei, where as students in Japan, there's a event called the Coming of Age Day, where it's a day where you sit down and you look at your plans for the future and set forth what you're going to do for the future, making plans for change in your life. And we have to deal with the conversation that like, will we even be able to make it to that day, to that future? Well, still trying to be positive about what's going to happen and everything, and not trying to be so down in the dumps, especially with things like a doomsday cult going around next. We are still staying strong as we're contemplating and talking about the future and what it means for us. We even have conversations with Aegis where she is feeling lonely about her existence as a robot because, classic robot becomes human type situation where it's like, me and Kuro-chan, who's a dog, we are not people, so, we're not like you guys, right? And then feeling lonely because of it. But we also have some fun moments like Akihiko-san actually losing his bet and have to pay up. See, during the babe hunt, there was risks involved. Not only was there humiliations, but also there was a bet of Akihiko having to pay for a bill at ramen. And finally, he paid up and the group is able to go get ramen together. Now, okay, the dinner is a little bit interrupted by the fact that the leader of the Doomsday cult is literally the fake Jesus. So, yeah, and the Doomsday cult literally worshiping Nyx and all that. Yeah, not really a good look, and a little bit of a downer. But still staying positive going forward, when we have our own little interview with our teacher about what do we plan to do in the future, we have that moment of, I don't know, what are we going to do? Are we going to get a job? Are we going to go to college, or are we undecided? Where are we at with the future and where we are? And it's at that point after we made our decision and we are told to go get Aegis that we see Aegis contemplating on her own. We get to talk with Aegis about her fears, that she doesn't want to lose her consciousness anymore, not like last time. That when she almost died, she has a fear for death, and that she's come to the terms that she has truly changed. She is not the same person she once was. Not saying she's become human, but she's kind of becoming human. That's basically the point. But honestly, in this section, it was really great to have a lot of these moments where we have the party coming together and spending time together, hanging out. That we really are a crew, a family. As we get ready for the final fight and we meet up once more, there's conversations about what will happen when we defeat Nyx. There's a conversation that like, hey, there's a possibility we might lose our memory. It's not really something that came to terms. I didn't realize that was a possibility until the game told me just now that it's a possibility, which kind of sucks, but everyone kind of makes a stand and says, hey, even so, I refuse. We won't lose our memory. We will remember. And that we make a decision that when we do, we'll actually meet up. We will celebrate once we've done it because we are going to win. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, on graduation day, you know what? That's a perfect time. We'll celebrate then once we have defeated Nyx. And with it, with full motivation, we fight on and proceed up Tartarus to fight Nyx. Heading forward, we do run into Jin. I guess it wasn't that surprising. And we instantly defeated pretty quickly. Like, that wasn't really that surprising. He wonders if we're going to finish him off. We're not, obviously. And when we leave, there's shadows coming. And he sacrifices his life for us. It's kind of odd. But either way, we don't really have time, so we have to continue. And that's when we face fake Jesus once more. He's still on the end is nigh and how this moment of end should be wonderful, that it should be celebrated. Why not? Why fight it? Again, being one of the last obstacles for us to deal with of this idea of living in ignorance. Why struggle against this thing? Come on, it's a celebration. It should be fine. It's pointless anyways. Of course, we dust him to prove a point, and we leave him. We leave him laying down. It's so weird to see him on the ground when we have this little hub world spot to pick new characters, and he's just there laying there. It's so silly. It's so silly. But after many hours and finally making it to the top of Tartarus, it is finally time to take on Nyx. And boy, does this battlefield look like an Elder Ring room. And from the sky, it's the one, it's the only, Nyx. Well, technically, it's actually Nyx's avatar, but you know, same deal, same thing. I think it's funny that the Nyx avatar has a whole speech of like, hey, I am what people fear. I'm what people ignore. That is me. And everyone would be like, yeah, we know that. And then it's being like, so you know it's pointless to do this. And we're like, shut up. We're going to fight you. We don't care. And then we have a moment as to why I think the whole thing with Jin was kind of like already shown was that, hey, oh no, we're going to fight Nyx, but also, oh no, there's shadows coming up that we have to deal with. That's why we still have a combat with only 4 party members instead of everybody fighting. Kind of like, I think it would have been ballsy if the game literally was just like, nah, have everybody on your team fight. I think that would have been crazy, but I understand why they didn't. But either way, with our party assembled, we choose to fight Nyx to defeat it. And then at the beginning of the fight, we get some great biblical like wording of like, the moment man devoured the fruit of knowledge, he sealed his fate. Entrusting his fruits to the cards, man clings to a dim hope. Like us try to like tarot cards, try to like pick our choice because we've eaten the fruit of good and evil, you know, classic biblical. Like it's interesting how much of that is mixed into this like kind of like setting of the game. As we fight against Nyx, the Nyx literally cycles through the 12 shadows. So not specifically their game method, but by their type of the tarot cards. You know, different champions had different weaknesses and different strengths, and fighting through it, dealing with the different kind of changes and understanding based on our support of like, hey, what is she now? What is Nyx now? Is Nyx this type or this type? And having to deal with weaknesses and strengths that way was very interesting. It also was hard because it just did a lot of damage sometimes, and I was constantly afraid that we were just gonna die, especially towards the end as it just kept ramping up the damage further and further. But luckily, you're able to defeat Nyx. Kinda.
The moon. Oh, what is that?
This can't be real.
Soon it will descend upon us. Upon us all.
What the hell is going on here?
What is that?
What is that?
What's dreaming, Emma?
Police
What's it
radio.
sounding? What is that? Some kind of was it built?
Look at the moon. It's glorious.
Just as the prophecy
It was true!
Okay, I don't know how fake Jesus made it up here. I don't know. But like he's just up here literally just to mock us and laugh at us. So it's, I don't know. It's a bit much. Honestly, at this point, I was hoping for more payoff from this character, and I haven't gotten much. So just shut up. Just be quiet.
What is this? This is nothing.
How ridiculous. Are you out of your mind?
Look who's talking.
Death is imminent. Surely you know this. What do you hope to accomplish now? I wanted to see the end with my own eyes. Jin.
I will never give up. Never!
Why resist that which is inevitable? You'll only suffer.
Damn it. I won't back down.
I've made up my mind. I'll fight till the end!
Ken!
Son of...
We have come this far. I will not submit!
I don't know if you guys know this, but I am a Dragon Ball Z fan. I love Dragon Ball, and one of the iconic moments is Goku in the Spirit Bomb for asking everybody for the energy, that it's not through his strength, but through everybody and those relationships he met along that he's able to win. That is what we have here. Finally fulfilling our contract, as Igor puts it, that through the power of our connections and relationships we built with other people, that we have this specific power that is strong and will give us the power to deal with Nyx, to deal with fate, to deal with the future.
What the?
No, don't go! What is he doing?
Damn it! Why the hell can't I stand up?
Why? After all we've been through! Stop! Don't do this! Come back!
We get one more encounter that is very unique, where it's just us, one health, and we have very few things we can do. We try attack, and does nothing. Does nothing. We almost dusted. We almost die. Luckily, we get healed by our teams for Ex Machina, and everybody kind of praying to us, which is weird. I don't know. I wouldn't say praying. I should say like chanting on the song. But finally, we are able to use our Great Seal and are able to finally seal away Nyx. Once more, 2 months pass, and we're greeted with a familiar scene. One that, if we hadn't saved Scone, wouldn't have been familiar, but it is familiar. Honestly, I kind of hate this. In a lot of ways, I like the outcome and how things begin to play out, but the very beginning of this, I hate a lot. Only because it is exactly as things happened last time. as we mentioned, going into the fight, there was a possibility of us losing our memory even after we defeated Nyx. And so far, it seems like it's true. While Aegis, not being a person, still has memories, looks on creepily as we don't understand what's going on. What's different this time though is life carries on. Our days keep going. We get some letters from other characters and other social links as we get conclusions to stories. Many of our different social links of people we knew, we get last farewells and less conclusions of what's going on with them. A lot of them though, sadly, are ending in a way of people going away, people going separate ways, not because they don't want to, but because that is their plans for the future, is to accomplish different things. When it comes to talking with our party members, they are foggy. They know there's something they need to do, but for some reason they can't remember what it was. But life moves on. As we continue our life talking with different social links we've made along the way of these many hours we played of this game, and bringing to conclusions many of those different stories and seeing where they go, which way they choose to keep living, we have a conversation with Aegis. She finally brings up the fact that, hey, you remember, right? And slowly we are able to start to remember. She explains that yes, after the battle, we did win, but others don't remember. And she brings up the fact that, isn't it graduation day? The day that we said we would meet together? At school, since for some reason we didn't go to school, I don't know why. Mitsuri, as we saw last time, gives her speech to everybody about seizing the moment, taking opportunity, and paving your way for the future, no matter what is unexpected. But some things trigger her as she begins to slowly remember something that she needed to do.
I remember. Yes. With my father's death, I lost my purpose in life.
Hang on. Wasn't I supposed to?
Akihiko-senpai. What's up?
But now, I have something to live for. No longer will I run from the future. I will face it head-on, carrying out my father's will. I am resolved, and without reservation.
Promise.
I owe it all to my invaluable friends. And we have promised to never lose hope, no matter what tomorrow may bring.
Senpai, we made a promise. Let's find him, and Aegis too.
Yes, I can hardly wait. Everyone, let's go!
Alone with Aegis, we have a conversation. It's a bit of a one-sided conversation, since we are silent protagonists, but Aegis brings up the fact that she finally figured it out. She understands what it means to be human, and what it means to live. It means not running away, not thinking for yourself, but accepting the inevitable. Understanding that all things do come to an end, and that everything will disappear. And only by accepting it can then they understand the true meaning of what it means to live and what it means to have life. And Aegis coming to terms with it and growing and understanding not only her strengths but her weakness. And with it, at the end, she's made up her mind that she's decided to protect us. We're her strength alone, and how she wants to be our strength. And that's the purpose and the choice she has made for the future. And that is her reason, her purpose, her worth of living. And she thanks us. We wipe away a tear because she is not a robot anymore. She is a human, and this is worrying and this is terrifying. In all reality, this is a sad but happy moment. Obviously, with the trope of cherry blossoms flying, we understand that it's a motif, a symbol, an image of change, of new beginnings, which is fitting with this conversation as it goes on, of being able to hear our friends like Junpei and everybody coming to our side. Aegis still keeps saying that she'll protect us as we slowly say our goodbye and fall asleep. as a Christian, I try to be in touch with my emotions. I try to be vulnerable. I'm not trying to be the stoic man who has everything together. No, it's okay to have emotions, including crying. And when it comes to a lot of me is, there's the trope of like, I watched a sad movie and I cried. I usually don't have that trigger. But when I got done with this game and like the more I thought about this game and listened to the music, I listened to so much of this music, it hits me in the feels. Like I feel sad when thinking about the ending of this game. This is a great game. I enjoyed this game so much. And it's one of those where I'm really glad that they're making a remake, but it's one of those where, almost like your baby. You don't want your artistic baby to get touched and ruined. Like you want it to keep it intact. Just like anybody who's read a book and it's going to get adapted into a movie. You're like, please don't ruin what was good about this thing. And there's a lot of that I feel here of like the music, the sound design, and even just different moments that they hit on. I like this game so much. The biggest part that I love, especially at the end of this game and listening to music and been thinking about this game for so long, is the ending of this game and the true meaning of this game. The theme line of this game is life and death. What does it mean to be alive? What is the purpose? And the fact that, hey, at the end of the day, you will die. It's not a lighthearted, fun game, and that's kind of one of the things I heard a lot about this game and why you shouldn't play this game is because it's sad. I mean, obviously there's plenty of aspects in this game that's still fun and enjoyable, but it is a bit more of a sad game. Countless times throughout playing this game, you are dealing with, or characters are dealing with the idea of death and having to mourn and grieve and go through that. You don't get that a lot in games, and I actually really love it that the game has that and has it as an element of when you go through the process, you grow stronger. From story point to gameplay point of like connection through line that like I love it. I think it works so well. I mean, other elements like that, like a big part of this game is building your social links, building connections with people, building relationships. And I like even at the end, you kind of get that Earthbound kind of feel of like they're all saying goodbye in a sense that they're helping out, that last like spirit bomb, give me your energy type situation. And it kind of gives that payoff to putting in all that work with that social links. I love that. But even with all that I love, there's plenty of problems with this game. And I mentioned it clearly already, and it's one of those where it's like, man, a lot of these problems I don't think will show up in Reload. The biggest one that's going to be changed in the Reload is the fact that you can control all your party members. Like that's what made Persona 3 hard, was not only was like the enemies hit hard like a truck, but also the fact that you only got to control yourself. And so it was so dangerous and scary. Changing that one thing is going to just make so many people's like gameplay take so many hours less. Like that's what added so many hours to me, was like, oh no, my teammate did this horrible decision. And you won't experience that in the new game. Another thing I'm curious if they will change or not is if when the main character dies, if it starts over, if it's like game over. I think they did it in Persona 5, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did it here with the remake. And I hope they don't, because honestly, it's still a gameplay like aspect, a mechanic that I hate so much. I don't like it. I don't like it. One thing that probably won't change, but it could change with this remake is Tartarus. The fact that Tartarus was so boring and repetitive and monotonous was a problem. There's a bit of a nitpick on my end, but I didn't really like that towards the 20-hour mark before the game was ending, that last 20 hours, that there was a twist, like, ooh, we got you, of like, hey, the Dean did it, and then, oh, the game's not actually done yet. I will say the actual what you're playing and doing at that point was still enjoyable. It was still good. It was still interesting. I like the choices that you got to make during that last half and seeing the party kind of grow together even more than they did before. But I will say, I don't know, it felt like at that point, what tends to happen with the Persona games is they are very long, at 90 hours at least, and that takes a lot of time, and throughout a certain amount of time, you get a little tired and want to get to the end. At the very least, I do know one thing that they'll fix with like this process that like made it such a boring thing for me, or I hope they do, is Persona 3 did have the lack of variety of music. It had good music, but some things like the battle track was the one battle track unless you fought bosses, and so like that kind of stuff I can see them changing, but for better or for worse. Like these original tracks, I like them. I like what tracks we had, it's just it was so few, and so when you're at Tartarus, you'll listen to the same track and same track, and it can make you go crazy a little bit. And so I enjoy this music, And if they don't have a reload, that's going to be a sad, but if it's at the sake of adding more variety and it's not so monotonous, overall, it's a better product. But, I will miss this great soundtrack that we did get. One thing that I hate that this game did to me is it made me hate Persona 5 more. Like, I love Persona 5. It used to be my favorite game, and then something happened. And so I've been holding off to review Persona 5 for that reason, so I could really digest it with you guys. But the more I play this game, there's so many similarities with Persona 5, which makes sense because sometimes you take stuff from your older games and have it in, but I hated how much of Persona 3 is in Persona 5. It makes me hate Persona 5 because I'm like, man, why didn't you do more different? Why is there so many similarities? Stuff like Tartarus and going underground, Shibuya, I don't know what it was called. It's been so many long time, but that was literally the same process. I kind of wish that would have been different. Now, it's one of those things where the positive is if you like that structure, you'll like it here. So either way, that's there for better or for worse though. One thing I should bring up is the red flags of tarot cards. I know I kind of mentioned I'll talk about it. It is going to be brief because I don't have much to say about it. Tarot cards obviously is bad. Having divination and divining your fate is not good. You're really asking a demon to tell your fate. Like, it's not a good thing. It's not good spiritually. You shouldn't do that. The usage of it in this game, I don't know. I don't have too much of a problem with it. I think in a lot of sense, it's just, if anything, a quirky way to symbolize different things to connect with. So it's like, hey, this character is like this. So he has that trait. It's almost like they could have traded it for like Norse mythology or Greek gods and used it as more of a symbolism to it. That's all I see it as, not actually using tarot cards in the actual use of tarot cards of divining fate. That's where I'm at with it. I think I should mention that because I'm a Christian and I will get comments about it. So yeah, I don't have a problem with it because it's more just paint strokes. It doesn't actually connect with the right meaning and it's not going over the bar where I'm like, don't like it. The very last thing we should talk about is the message of Memento Mori. This is the message of the game. Remember, you will die. How the game uses this message is very interesting. It's kind of connected in a way of like giving like purpose for your one's life. It's kind of like, hey, the main character must sacrifice his life, and that's kind of like Memento Mori. Remember, you must die. At the beginning, you signed your contract. You must fulfill that contract when it comes out. You must die. And I think it's used in a great way, but that's not really its main usage. I mean, don't forget, Memento Mori was a Christian thing. You must die. It is a inevitability that you will die. This was something that was written on a lot of tombstones as a reminder to those living. One, don't forget the reality of what's going to happen. Two, in a lot of sense, it's used in a way as make the most of your life, live it to the fullest. That's a lot of times what it's used for. But don't forget, you must die. This is a reality that will not be changed. So it really matters what you do with your life. What is the meaning of life? At the end, we have Aegis, which I know I pronounced her name multiple times wrong, but whatever. I mispronounce everybody's name wrong, so it's okay, right? Either way, she even brings up at the very end, she understands the meaning of life, how you're not supposed to live for others, and how you have to live protecting others and serving others. And so, in a lot of this, we see similar to Christian living. That is a main part of Christian living, is the fact that, hey, you will die. That is a reality, but what are you going to do with your life? Our life is showing love to others and sharing the message of God. He loves us. He came down for us and died for us, and he will be coming back. Just like the fact that we will die, he will come back. It's a bit of a side note, but it's very sad when I hear tales of secular people who do not believe in Christian life, when they talk about death and what it comes after. What is the point of death? For a lot of people, it's just, it will be what it is. I'll just live my life as is, and I'll die, and that's it. Other people, worst it can be is if I die, then, I'll be in a boiling pot, hot water, and the devil will be poking me. I guess that'll be the worst thing, right? Not really. It's really not. As for Christians, this is the worst it will ever get. For those who are non-believers, this is the best it will ever be. So a message to the living, Memento Mori. What will you do with your life? Now, I know I've talked over like several hours about a game and how that's how much my focus has been on, but at the end of the day, that is the message of the game. I think the game does an amazing job at connecting and just hinting on that idea of death and morality and going through the process of dying, knowing that others will die, and what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do with it? Where do you want to be? And at the end of the day, as a Christian, well, what do you want to do after your death? That matters too. I'm so glad I was able to bring this video to you guys. I've been trying for so long to talk about this game, and I love it so much. I still, even today, listen to the soundtrack and different kind of songs of this game and get sad about it because I think the game does such a great job. The Memento Mori, remember you must die, and the whole track of saying goodbye, and it ends with you leaving. You die and you leave everyone else. And that's where the game ends. I had to say goodbye at the end of the game and left it. Literally us dying brought us separation. Like that level of immersion I loved so much. I love it so much, and it made it so much more impact in myself with this game. Jesus loves you. Bye guys. Memento Mori.